Who can
There
start?
it is. Got it going.
Here we go. Well, I'm glad to be here today. And of course, I've been involved with the Global Chamber for quite a few years now. And I've been running every season. I run to become president of Doug's fan club, but I keep falling short, but I keep working at it. So hopefully one of these years I'll at least get noticed on the board, because I know there's so many of us out there who would love to have that role. Quick background, just so you'll get a flavor for it. As a very young person, I was a book person. So spent a lot of time with the books, even in my rural area. And my favorite historical character was Marco Polo. And I just thought the idea of going from Italy to China to do business and what that was and all the grandeur of those stories was just terrific for me. And on the heels of that, so that there was literary interest as well as history, Don Quixote, Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra, was a huge life in my, part of my life, because first of all, chasing windmills is kind of what life should be about. Let's go find a windmill and let's make a difference. So anyway, with that background, I've just been in business all my life, building and growing companies. And so as soon as I could have it be international, we did that. So we built a company. When we got out, a few years later, we had 3,000 employees in 5 countries. And in Asia, we were headquartered in Japan. And our partner there was NTT, the Japanese phone company. We had the business in Belgium, which gave us the pan-European work. And of course, we were in Mexico and in Canada, and of course, here in the US. And my childhood was spent living 10 miles from the Mexican border at the very bottom of California in the farming area. So as a 5- and 6-year-old kid, I would go out and pick cotton in the fields. This was before there were cotton pickers. And so I would go out, work with the kids, get to know them. And it's always just been fun for me to see people from the different parts of the world. So that's just been a part of who I am. And of course, you can see why I get so excited about everything going on at the Global Chamber. And even with the new things that we're doing, we're starting to spend more time internationally. And even though I don't particularly enjoy 12 and 14-hour flights, I enjoy being where I arrive. So anyway, that's kind of the excitement part of it.
What business were you doing with the Japanese? Sorry to interrupt, but the Japanese telecom.
We helped them start and grow call centers, and so call centers in Japan, and we happen to distinguish ourselves with the use of processes and technology and reporting, and so that was how they decided to choose us to help them be their partner. So they took the know-how that we had in the U.S. and, as you know, they implement so well. They used our capabilities much better than we did, I think. So it was terrific. Any questions about any of that or thoughts?
Oh, that was great. Thanks.
You're on mute, Todd.
Yeah. Nope.
Dwaine, you're going to be sharing your screen, right?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to do just a little screen share, kind of give you a flavor for where we are. And the introduction to it is this, is that it's this issue of executive leadership teams. Now, just to give you a little flavor for what the focus behind this is, think of this. If I say to you a sales system, or I say to you an accounting system, you shrug your shoulders and say, of course. Of course we have a sales system. Of course we have an accounting system. But a very few years ago, I went to buy the URL executive leadership system. And I got it for the base price. It had never been requested. There's no book on Amazon that says executive leadership system. There are different things around it, but nothing specifically about executive leadership system. And so with that thought in mind, it fit within kind of what we're going to do. And so what I'm going to show you now is around that issue. And we'll try to make sure we keep it really focused in terms of the cross-cultural piece as well. So the slideshow here, and can you all still hear me okay?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. So let me see if this will come up for us here now. There we go. I'll try to move this off to the right here. A global executive team leadership. And it's this issue of having structure within the executive leadership team. And here's the difference. Traditional focus for leadership is about setting goals and then providing lots of pressure for people to accomplish those goals. And we're suggesting that real executive leadership should be concerned about the environment within which everyone receives all that pressure and focuses to accomplish those goals. And so, and we look at that in terms of cross-cultural. And when we think about that, it's around this kind of issues. The environment focus has to be about the hearts, the minds, and the lives of individuals. And whether you are within a relatively homogeneous culture or you're with multicultural, working within teams, a sensitivity to the hearts, the minds, and the lives puts us into a place of really wanting to understand the backgrounds, the environments in which people grow up, what maybe even the issue of individual assessments, the different assessment tools for personality and those sorts of styles. So that's really what we want to get as a part of leadership. And oddly enough, it's a rare thing. So I'd be curious to see how this strikes you in terms of a thought and a focus, to see if you have any points or comments around this idea.
I think it's central to what a company ends up being, right? Are you there to whip and control folks, or are you there to enhance their careers, enhance their lives, and give them internal motivation to drive forward? I love this. So
thank you. Yeah, that's really what you just stated is central to what we want to have as motivation behind this, is that and I don't think it's really self-serving. I think it really is a thought of, my goodness, what we want to have an environment so that when people spend their 8 or 10 hours a day on the behalf of our organization, we would like for them to go home with a sense of refresh, a sense of excitement about going home, as opposed to having carry with them into their homes the pressure and the sense and the intensity that it takes to really accomplish goals. Doesn't mean we give up on the goals, but let's develop a way during the day, while how they engage with one another, it encompasses this. So any other thoughts?
This does seem to be very connected with all the work that has been going on around engagement, even though different people use different words and slice it different ways. It's fundamentally the same thing of saying, rather than whipping obedience into people, how is it that you attract them? How do you have them naturally pull together rather than tear apart as a team and things like that? So,
Yes.
Yes. So far, so good.
Okay. And if you have thoughts later that are regarding this, we'll come back to that. So
I was just going to say that sort of segueing on what Carl just said, that brought to mind for me the competitiveness that is so strong in our culture. that actually I think works against what it is that you're talking about. And so it's how can we find a way to become a more homogenous and harmonious culture rather than such a competitive culture that gets drilled into us.
Yes, yes, and I have an anecdote that really illustrated that really strongly for me. In one of my sessions where I was invited to be a speaker at a major conference in Japan, I was talking about leadership there, and in the audience were about 300 people, and they were from all over Japan. You know, the north, the south, the east, west. We were in near Tokyo, but it was people from all over. 300 people in a room, and the fellow who was my international person had lived in Japan for 12 years, spoke the language quite well, and very familiar with the culture. And he said, listen, I want you to know that they're going to introduce you. And when they do, what I want you to do, and it was going to be a stand-up presentation where I would be standing for 30 minutes. And he said, I want you to go out. I want you to pause, stand straight. I want you to say to them, Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Then I want you to bend over at the 45-degree angle, but I want you to lift your eyes and see what happens. And so as I made the statement, bowed, lifted my eyes, in perfect unison, the 300 people stood, bowed at the 45-degree angle, stood up, and sat down. Now, we couldn't get 300 people in the US to repeat that. It would take weeks to train them to be able to behave in that kind of way. So his point to me was, this is a culture that knows how to connect with one another, and they know how to participate as teams and groups. And so that became an important lesson for me as we worked through the other issues in implementing our materials with them and training and engaging with them. I just found that a fascinating incident. So the essentials with the environment, in my mind, is that there has to be clarity about what is expected and transparency, not just with what is expected, but transparency with the thoughts and the attitudes and the motives behind things. And so clarity plus the transparency will get us to trust. And so that gets us to this idea of an executive leadership system. So that if we have structure, and I don't mean structure in the sense of harnessing everyone to something, but structure within which the executive team presents its role, its goals, its activities, its thoughts, its attitudes, and its motives in a way that others will have a sense of understanding about them. They will get to clarity, and they will get to the transparency piece. And so in terms of a systems framework, what we would want is, first of all, to know that our executive team is connected and aligned. Because quite often in organizations, the executive teams are disconnected. Each of the parts operate quite separately. And so we don't have a connected and aligned executive team. The second thing that really helps everyone is to have clarity about strategic initiatives. What are we planning to do to accomplish and become who we want to be as an organization? What are the things that we're changing and fixing that's present? What are the things that we're changing and adjusting to because it will help us become newer or better or different in terms of how we provide value for customers? And then the third thing is around definition around stakeholder. And the easiest way to have a grasp on that is almost every company, if asked, and the leadership of every company, if they were asked, are you customer focused? They would, of course, say yes. But if we ask them for a document and a clarity of process about how all the parts are customer focused in a cohesive and a collaborative way, I've never actually found an organization that had something like that. And then the other piece is around the reporting and the measurements, having clarity and understanding of the reporting, reviewing reporting, make sure that we're paying care of, we're taking care of measurements, we're making sure that they're current and that they are being used and they are accomplishing what is expected. This is the framework within which a system can be created. And the system, with these things clarified, is where we can also then engage all of the requirements that it takes for people to be connected, aligned, but also to have a sense of the hearts and the minds and the lives of everyone in the organization. And it's in here that we begin to have a way to repeat and support and reinforce our principles and how we engage with one another. Your thoughts?
I think this is very much a view of management versus servant leadership, almost, because I see it very much as a servant leadership where you are supporting people by trying to serve them. You're wanting to support them, give them those resources to thrive, compared to a traditional management system, which is I tell you what to do, and now you need to do it.
Yes.
So it's very much aligned, and that is the shift I'm seeing in management right now. You have the old school, I tell you what to do, you need to do it. But especially for younger generations, we're expecting that more of the servant leadership where you're listening, you're engaged, you're understanding the bigger picture, because a satisfied employee is going to give you a whole lot more profit for the company than an employee that's overworked.
Yes, yes. And I think that and so when we think of our relationship here with this idea of a system relative to servant leadership is a significant bit of content about what that actually means. And what we want to have within our system is the ability for that servant leadership content to be implemented. Does that sound correct to you?
Yeah, that sounds very much like what I'm seeing.
Yeah. So
And I
now
agree.
because here's what I've found in doing speaking that has just happened over and over again. But imagine speaking to 100 executives, and so they are, and they're all in, let's call it C-suite levels, and they're in companies from 5 million to 100 million. So that's the audience, 100 executives. And so we greet them and we say, listen, here, just to get connected, what I'd like to do is I'd like to find out your interest to a certain extent, but I'm going to hold up a book. And if you've read the book, please raise your hand. And so I hold up Simon Sinek, Start With Why. And I'll get 80 to 90 hands. A Malcolm Gladwell book, a Jim Collins book, Brene Brown. And we'll find that most people have read those. And so they've read the books. And so that's terrific. So then I ask, okay, please, if you wouldn't mind, how about sharing with us one item that you really liked in one of these books? And tell us why you liked it. So then we'll get 10 or 15 of the folks to share with us, I really like this particular point or principle, and here's why I liked it. And so that's terrific. So then we finish those. So now we have the group really connected, because there's probably an overlap of 80 to 90% of everyone having a sense of connect with everything that's just been shared. This is what I liked, and this is why I liked it. We're now connected. Then I asked this question, okay, for these things that you've liked, what we'd like for you to do is to share, and it doesn't have to be anyone that's already spoken, but share with us something that you really liked, explain how you implemented it in your business, and tell us the outcome or impact. And you're right, I get no responses.
Yep.
And the reason is we have these wonderful things that we really like, but our leadership is kind of like a cluttered garage. We have all this stuff everywhere in the garage, but we don't know how to make use of it. So what we want to do, the reason for the system, is to provide a place within which we can now turn something into an initiative, implement it within the company, because we know the processes and we know where they fit and how it happens. So that's really a significant part of explaining kind of how this begins to work and why the reason for the system. The system is not to restrict, but the system is to provide an environment where we can be open, where we can be collaborative, where we can be concerned about others, where we pay attention to the hearts, minds, and lives, and how what we say and do impacts hearts and minds and lives of others. And at the same time, we can begin to measure what people are accomplishing and doing, and recognizing what they're doing. And in recognizing, we can then celebrate with people. So when I work with companies, one of the things I hear very often is it's very important in a company to have accountability. And I'll hear that. Yes, we like to have accountability. Here's what we're expecting. Here are our goals. And now we need to have accountability. And I will respond and say, look, I'd like for you to consider an alternative, but I'd like to illustrate it and then get your reaction to this. And so here's what I say to them. I say, listen, I believe that the word visibility should replace the use of the word accountability, because accountability begins with the thought that, listen, I'm expecting this, I'm going to hold you accountable. And the reason I'm having to hold you accountable is because I expect you to fail at it. And I want the pressure of you knowing that I'm going to hold you accountable to help motivate you to do this correctly. And we're saying, I just think that's a wrong principle, a wrong attitude, a wrong foundational cultural part of your company. And so what we want is visibility. So let's put visibility to the things that you're thinking about. And that's part of the first tool there to how we connect and align the executive team. Let's have visibility to what our strategic initiatives are. Let's have visibility to what it really means to be customer focused. And let's have visibility to the measurements that we're using to know how well we're all doing. And if we have visibility, this should give us the thought that, ooh, we want to have visibility to it, because when you do well with it, we want to be here to celebrate with you. So that becomes an example of a cultural change that can occur within a company. And then if we have a system within which we reinforce and make those things repeatable, now we can begin to alter significantly the culture within the company.
You know,
Dwaine,
Dwaine, I have seen some people that have gotten beyond just the initial change that it takes to incorporate a new idea and a new way of thinking. And what I'm finding is that when they do that, they get to a new point of simplicity and clarity.
Yes.
And, you know, it's sort of like we were able to throw away a lot of that crap we used to pay attention to, because now we're clear on what we are focused on and what is important to us. And yeah, we do the, you know, got to keep up on the P&L and all that kind of stuff. But we're now clear that this is what's even more important than that. And for people who have moved to that stage, it's just incredibly transformational.
Yes, it is, Carl. You're absolutely right. And the difference is we come in the morning, we arrive in the building, or we arrive on Zoom, as we've had to do for the last year. And our shoulders are relaxed, as opposed to arriving with a sense of tension. And I never noticed that particular phenomenon until as a young person, you know, having grown up in kind of the country part, and moved to the East Coast, and I got to do business in New York City. My shoulders were up. You know, I was alert on every point, and I loved it. But then, of course, when I would fly back to the western part of the country and know that I was almost home, my shoulders would just go down. So that's a key part of what we want to have with this. And to me, one of the measurements, you know.
The shoulders being down, you mean?
The shoulders being down. Yes.
Yeah. I was going to say, because I've been working on that for years to get mine down, because them being up just means it's tension and stress.
Yes, absolutely. And part of it's caused because we don't have enough structure at the executive leadership team. We have lots of structure at the management level and the supervisory level, but it's all around goals and expectations. But the culture, in terms of how we engage with one another, that's where the executive leadership team has to have a sense of responsibility for establishing, reinforcing, promoting, encouraging, spreading. And that's what we want to accomplish with the system.
I think.
So I don't know. Oh, so go ahead, Todd.
I think a system that is looking for accountability is a system where you're going to see the shoulders up.
Yes. Yeah, because language makes a difference, and style of how we communicate. And, you know, having grown up on the Mexican border, and I always tease everyone, gosh, I was 20 before I found out I wasn't Mexican. And of course, I don't speak Spanish well, but it didn't matter because we were so engaged with one another.
Well, you can fake it pretty good because you said something up front that sounded pretty convincing.
Well, I have to be careful because I learned most of my Spanish on the border, and I know that they salted it with words that I should not be using, and I'm not sure when I'm using those. So it's the salting that I'm concerned about.
So this really reminds me of the Daniel Pink and you know, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And you know, obviously, I use that. So I've never been C-suite until I started my own business. Then you're everything, janitor included. But the point is, I use that throughout my career with my teams, and it was so powerful for them to understand that I'm not going to solve your problems for you. You have the autonomy to make your own decisions. I want you to make your own decisions, and I want you to be good at it. And hopefully, at some point, your direction and my direction happen to be going in the same way. And so, it's such a powerful difference between that and the accountability model. And yeah, love it.
And so to me, that's leadership. That's leadership. And one last anecdote here to kind of illustrate what I think is why this is so needed, and the fact that it's so absent.
Dwaine,
Is this.
before you go on, are you still sharing your screen? Are you still showing? Because we're seeing you. I don't know if you mean for us to be
No, I've not shared the screen. No, I'm going to show something else in a moment, but
Okay.
I'm not sharing screen because I wanted to see the faces also. So thank you. Oh my goodness, I lost my thought here for just a moment.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was on a Zoom, on a webinar call in recent weeks, and was a facilitator, and then two people who were the speakers. And this is for the private equity world. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the private equity world. Is where companies put together big funds of money and they buy companies, and the private equity companies might have a portfolio of 30 companies that they own or have big ownership interest in, and they help manage those companies. And so that's the environment. And the two people who were speaking, one of them was she's probably the most noted recruiting person for that world. So those companies spend a significant amount of time recruiting C-level talent. And so this is all high-level, C-level talent and so forth. And so they presented what it's like, what it takes, what it does. And the second person was responsible for talent, executive talent, in one of the largest private equity companies in the US. And so here are these two magnificent, brilliant people, of course, and they are sharing all of the issues about recruiting, developing, networking, and everything so that they can have really exceptional executive leadership teams in their companies. There was a single word that I'm going to ask. There was one word that was never used. It was never used. And so now think of this: C-level people, recruiters, developers for the C-level team. One word never used. And I won't ask you to guess, although you're certainly free to guess. But here's the word that was never used in this 1-hour presentation. They never once used the word leadership. They only talked about management, because management is goals and pressing to meet the goals. And that's how companies are run in the United States. And they all mimic what goes on with Wall Street, which is every quarter we have to meet or exceed our numbers. And so it's built a, quote, management style that is not always micromanagement, but it is definitely management that is goal focused. And there's very little time in there to be distracted with the idea of how do we build an environment within which everyone is having to do all of this. None of them have a defined executive leadership system. What they have defined is a way to manage their goals and their KPIs, and even from the venture capital world, one of the #1 people in all the venture capital world is credited with having created the principal new theme for how you run a company. And the principal new theme is something called OKRs. OKRs. That's how you make a successful company, is with OKRs. What are OKRs? Objectives and key results. So we have a bit of a ways to go to put in place this idea of building companies that not only create value in the company or the organization if it's nonprofit, but how do we create value with each of the individuals? And so it's a value creation piece. And I realize for people in the stock market, Wall Street, that it may be a little more complicated for them. But we're expecting now with the work that we're doing that we want to work in these mid-market companies, in these 5 to 100 million size companies where the bulk of employees work anyway. And let's go help build environments there where we're not bound by Wall Street. And I think Wall Street brings its own great value to the mix, but they don't necessarily bring great value to the lives of the individuals who are making all this happen. And so that's a part of what we're focused on. I think it's an exciting time, and just the idea of servant leadership and being responsible for individual lives is not a small deal. So if I may, I'll just do a quick screen share, because what I'm going to offer, if you'd like, I can send you a PDF copy of a book that we published here now quite some time ago here, but let's do this here. I think, see if I can get this here done correctly. I'm going to escape here. Oh, come on now. It's not letting, there we go. Let me show you this. This is the book here. I'm going to have to move our picture here just a moment here off to here. And I'm going to see if I can reduce the size of this just a little bit. There we go. And so here is this idea of what we're focused on is how do we create elite executive teams? And what they accomplish is growth, performance, and value. And how they do it is with structure and with discipline and with guidance. Because this is what it's going to take to make life at work fulfilling for everyone. And so as you read the back cover here, and you certainly won't waste your time doing that, but you can see that it's really about the executive leadership system really provides the needed structure so that we can get executive teams to perform at an elite level. And it's really about how do they create an environment that attracts, engages, and retains talented individuals. That's the purpose of an executive team. And just take you here quickly to, this is on page 106. I think I'm just a 150 page book, and it's printed just so that it's an airplane ride. And, but here are the 5 skills that are key differentiators for executive teams. And I know you've begun seeing some of these very popular these days. Of course, the idea is communicate, but we express here, it's the idea of listen and understanding as opposed to just speaking well in public, because communicate is not just being a good person with personality and presence. And this word empathy has crept up. But I also believe that a part of this world of being cross-cultural, because we're hoping that these principles are used throughout the world, and that being cross-cultural means that you have to put things in the big picture context. You know, what is the big clear picture? How do you conceptualize what is going on? And I just hearken back to that moment as I walked on stage, bowed, looked up, and found 300 people moving in unison. That was a major new event for me. And then clarifying principles. We don't just use a word we've read in a book 2 weeks ago, but we begin to see how those principles from that book become a pervasive part of how we engage with one another on an ongoing basis. And then this idea of diving for details. Too often, executives have a tendency to just focus on the big issues, and without understanding, at least at some point, understanding the details I think they miss the ability and the opportunity to engage with individuals more effectively. So anyway, that's a little bit too much detail, but you can see that the product and what we're trying to challenge people with is the idea of, if you're going to be in a lead executive team, you have to have a system, and that system has to have clarity. And here are some of the new ways to think about your role in terms of how you engage with your business beyond the issue of setting goals and beyond the pressure of exceeding goals. I didn't mean to talk this
Wow.
much, you all.
No, I was just gonna say, it's stunning, really. Obviously, great, great information for those exec level people. And so, as far as your business goes, how is it that do you get out to people? Do you do one-on-one coaching? How is it that you best feel like you're reaching an audience?
Well, we had planned to really launch things a year ago this time, but I think it was Todd that caused this problem with COVID. Don't you think he was sort of?
It's always his problem.
It's always his fault.
I left well, I won't say where, but I left a great career in end of January last year. So start my own business. Goodness. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah.
So I understand.
So anyway, we started, but what we're building is this. It's really two dimensions to the business. Is we're building a network of executive coaches who will use these tools with their clients. And so it's a set of tools, online tools. So for any of you familiar with Jim Collins and some of his books, is that?
Sure.
Well, in one of those books, he talks about having a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. Well, I'm going to take it maybe a little step further than that, and you will characterize it with any number of words. But we believe we're on path to become, for executive leadership teams and executive leadership system, what Salesforce is for sales teams. And so we're building these set of tools, and you just subscribe to them. We have a set of tools. You go on, you subscribe to the tools. The organization subscribes to the tools, and the coaches work with the companies in terms of how they use their tools. But it's around the executive coaching and teaching the executive team the kinds of things we're sharing here today. And yes, they do bump up against the issue of goals. But most of the organizations don't need help with the goals. What they need help with are the issues that we're talking about here. So our coaches usually work remote. They work through Zoom or one of the other such tools. And they also work and connect through the use of the tools where they see the inputs and everything that are going into the tools. But it's really focused around building this environment that we talked about.
That is a BHAG. That's huge. If you are going to be, as large as, Salesforce or whatever, I mean, that, in this space, that is a huge, huge undertaking.
Yes.
And what kind of infrastructure are you building to be able to do that?
Well, we have the website, of course, the website with the tools, and it operates, and the tools all work, and we have companies that use them and makes a difference with them. We're in the early stage of building our big curve, but what we're finding is it's new, and people are interested in new, and they're new because technology. I mean, just consider this thought. You can go to almost any company that you've been around, and let's just say the 5 to 100 million size companies, and ask the principals, do you have an executive leadership system? They don't. What they have are a set of goals and things they work on with goals. And they might have an organization structure and an organization chart. But notice how they build the chart. There's the first silo and the second silo and the third silo and so forth. And of course, we've built the company with the name Zynity. And for those of you with that first part sounds pretty comfortable to you, but Zynity means harmony among the parts. How do we create harmony among the parts? And that's what the tools help put in place.
So Dwaine, I think we were also going to mention about our board getting more involved with that system, right?
Yes. I thought maybe with the board we could get each of you and just make it available to you. You could put together your team, use the very basic tool, which really connects and aligns, and everyone has their headlines. What are you thinking about? And you'll share, and it'll be a way to communicate with one another. And I wonder if it would help without being too, I don't mean to just get off on a salesy piece here, but maybe I can show you how this works within an organization. Gosh, I don't even have it up here. I'll just go here with this, but I didn't mean to do this.
Yeah, I kind of threw that in, but I think what we're thinking of doing is having during our next board meeting to have you come and talk with us about
that. But with the
and we're right there.
Yeah, so here we are. We're right here, ready to get started here. But just to show you how this would work for this particular company here, a couple of these are demos, and then I have companies that I'm helping and helping other companies. But with the executive team, here's what everyone is thinking about. So here are their headlines. Here's what they're thinking about. And we can go over here to Keith, for example. We can put on Keith and we can come in and take a look and see, okay, let's come in here and see what's going on with Keith and the back and forth on this. But it's at the thinking level. It's not at the doing level. And so that's just one of the tools. And so anyway, I didn't mean to get too sidetracked there, but the thought is that we could put together our, oh, come on here now. Why did it do that to me here? There we go. Come on here, you're killing me here. Oh, I know what. We haven't actually put these together yet, have we?
Yeah, I don't think it's been done yet.
Yeah, it hasn't been done yet. I'm sorry.
Never do a live demo, right? That was
yeah, never do a live demo. Thank you for that. Whoever said that, yes.
It was Jobs. I'm just repeating it.
There you go.
Well, so let's open up for questions or discussions real quick. We're getting close to the hour here, so.
Yeah, Dwaine, thanks for doing this. I mean, I come out of B school. I've got, Collins' books and HBR, whatever, sitting on my shelf, and I always think it's interesting to hear new perspectives on the management philosophy. I don't deal specifically with it, so I don't think I'm a good resource for understanding what the value of this is or interpreting the value of this is, but I could probably stick your book on my shelf and read it sometime. I think that would be all right.
Well, we'd be delighted to have you do that. And, I've been running around the world doing businesses, and I did do the B school thing also. And in fact, I was a little young when I did it, but I was an instructor at West Point for a couple of years. Then I went off to Wharton, got my MBA there, and did some teaching there. And it kind of grows out of this, but the necessity of getting ready to create a private equity company made me see, oh my goodness, we've got to manage these executive teams. And frankly, they have significant impact in the teams, but how do we get best practices and share big practices and so forth?
Well, there's one crossover. Go Army, beat Navy. We can probably agree on that.
I don't agree on that.
Maybe beyond me.
You didn't have a lot of say this last year, but anyway, you might this next one, so we'll see.
All right, you guys.
Yeah.
Go
I
Bucks.
have
So
Anyway,
Lauren has something to say.
really quick. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Actually, the presentation was brilliant. I thought all of the content was so applicable in today's workplace and business. But I have a question about the beginning. You talked about Marco Polo when you were reading earlier on, and I was wondering if you have a favorite book about Marco Polo.
I have probably, if you went to my library and looked around my library, I probably have 18 different books. And as you know, different interpretations, different people doing translating, different stories, and no, I really don't have a favorite. There's a recent movie out about watching Marco Polo, but it's kind of difficult to watch because it really shows the harshness of what it was really like for him to go do that. So I'm struggling getting through the whole television series, but not a favorite one.
Okay, well, if you have any recommendations, I'd love to pick one of those up because I'm sure it'd be right up my alley.
Yeah, he's just magnificent what him and his father and uncle did, and it's just amazing work. Yeah.
So I'm going to throw something out there because we're sort of a group of people that's talking about doing this cross-cultural based like awareness piece, from NOCO. And maybe Marco Polo would be a good place to find some sort of like epiphany or something like that, to find a story that really kind of shows that how that cross-cultural thing works. And it could be based on something that's Marco Polo, because he did sort of bridge the East with the West.
Yes.
And that is definitely a cross-cultural piece. And maybe we could even look at having a talk about Marco Polo and using other examples, because one thing that you said, Dwaine, that really struck me was how you ask people about books, right? You're talking about books that are very US based mindsets and business styles and whatnot. And I was thinking it'd be interesting to, even Kaizen, which is pretty well known in the West, probably isn't one of those. But yet there again, we're looking at something that's it's a cross-cultural piece, and then talking about something that may not even be business oriented, but like, how about Confucius? How many of you read books about Confucius? To start pushing that, how unaware we are of these other cultures and how we have no input whatsoever. So how are we going to be successful?
Absolutely. And putting it in context, I mean, how few people know that Confucius didn't show up till around 500 BC, and he completely transformed the communities and the religious perspectives of the entire country in less than 100 years. He had an impact. It all happened beyond that.
And he was really sort of going for the same thing you're going for, is that heartfelt piece. Let's be compassionate. Let's be open and understanding. Even though he created a system that put people within sort of a hierarchy, it was done in a way that fit within that heartfelt piece.
Yes. And relevant to that, my hobby through the years, I have about 12,000 or more hours tied up in studying the religions of the world. And so that's a big part of helping to really connect with a culture, is to understanding the principles of their religions. So.
Yeah, I think we have a really awesome group here to come together and start working on this cross-cultural piece. We've got representations of a lot of different cultural backgrounds and cultural knowledge and stuff to be able to put that together. So
Yes.
I keep pushing on that. And I was talking with Doug about it the other day, and he, about what we're going to maybe do with NOCO is to bring us around to be that cross-cultural support system, and so we've sort of talked about it a little bit amongst ourselves, but at the same time, having people like you, like Allison, who have those backgrounds, experiences and whatnot, really just adds more to the mission of how important it is to have that knowledge and creating that system or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just growing up with variety is the spice of life, I think. My wife is also from a very small town, and we married very young. And the issue was every time we go to a new restaurant, let's order something that we've never seen before, never heard of. Let's do that. And we've done that now for quite a few years, and it's been terrific. So it's a beautiful world. We just need to embrace it.
Yeah.